So, good afternoon. I'm joined here by Bruno Seixas. He is heading up the Commercial Intelligence Department at EBANX, leading a team focused on helping their sales teams with big deals and looking at trends and developments. And we'll be talking about why LATAM still matters from a commerce perspective. EBANX is based in Curitiba in the south of Brazil. It's the first unicorn of the state of Paraná, the state in southern Brazil. The core product of what EBANX does is cross-border payments, an e-commerce solution that lets you sell locally without the need of a local presence. And EBANX serve, among others, Spotify, Ubisoft, Uber, and Airbnb as clients. Bruno, welcome. Great to have you on the Monetize Forum.
Well, Matthijs, thank you for the invite, and I hope that I can provide some good information for you guys to know a little bit more about Latin America.
Excellent. Look forward to this. So let's first have a look at LATAM. LATAM is a big place. If we go from Mexico all the way down to the south, to the southern tip in Chile, Argentina, it's a long way. So as we discussed, let's focus on three specific markets. Brazil with 210 million population, Colombia with a population of about 50 million, and Mexico with a population of about 128 million. So almost 400 million population. That's more than the US. That's about 2/3 of Europe. And as we discussed, let's look beyond GDP, because GDP growth is slow. But if you look beyond that in those three countries, you come to some very interesting conclusions. Let's start at GDP. You had a look at that.
Sure. It's interesting. It's been a rough year for all of us, and when you check the numbers itself on GDP, it's expected that all the LATAM region is shrinking by 8.1% in 2020, according to IMF. And when you compare with other regions, is that among the BRICS, for example, taking just this small group of countries that are comprised by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, just Russia is shrinking less than Brazil with 4.1%. And we can see India that it's 10.3%. And in the positive scenario, China is leading with 1.9% positive, because they are supplying a lot of medical products to all over the world, and then also leading with creating and shipping technology for all the countries in the world. And when you also compare side by side with the euro area, we have minus 8.3% shrinking in 2020, and the US with minus 4.3%. So doing a direct comparison, looks like all the countries, at least Brazil, it's very close to the big regions and big countries. And extrapolating that, what we can also read, getting numbers from e-commerce, is that all this shrinking and all the recession in 2020 are leading a big changing towards e-commerce growth, with less people buying in physical stores and shopping in retailers. The e-commerce is growing a lot, and Latin America is leading this e-commerce growth throughout all the regions in the world with 36.7%. Coming up next is North America with 31.8%. And then we also see a lot of growth in the Asia Pacific area, and they are with 26.4%. But in a worldwide perspective, we have the average of 27.6%. So it's interesting to see that this changing in the patterns and the behavior of Latin America, they are moving towards e-commerce and digitization. And it's something that we are going to talk more about in the next topics.
Yeah, perfect. Already, I think some fascinating numbers. So we had a look and we saw three areas. So delivery and logistics, growth and digitization, or the digitization of business, and some market specific changes. So let's go through the topics individually. I think that's easier than to tackle them country by country. So let's start with delivery and logistics. And what are your observations there, Bruno?
Sure. The first thing is that the logistics market in Latin America, specifically about Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, it's gaining some traction in the recent years, but still, it's not the fastest one. It has a lot of friction and it's expensive. Correios, especially in Brazil, they are trying to change this pattern or this this track record to become more e-commerce friendly, cross-border friendly, and faster. But this started last year. Let's see, and this year they really tried to catch up, doing big partnerships and with big brands. But still, in other regions, we can see there's a lot of things to catch up and to really modernize and become a driving force in the countries. What is really going on, and I think not only for Latin America but for all over the world, is that delivery apps, they are bringing another perspective and speed to the market. They are becoming the leaders and the trendsetters and on how logistics can be better in the region. So just a few numbers here in Brazil, the growth from 2018 to 2019 was 23%. And only in 2020, considering January till now, numbers from November, 155% growth. So we can see that when we can say over 5-6 times increase folds in growth in this platform. In Colombia, by July 20, Rappi is the leading company, delivery company in the country, and it's a Colombian company as well. The audience was 15% higher in comparison to January 20. And in Mexico, in 2020, 5 out of 10 consumers bought online. And Uber Eats is leading the preference. And in August 20, we saw an impressive 182% increase in comparison to January 20. And mobile is responsible for 298% of the audience. And desktop 96%.
Those are very impressive numbers. And then is Rappi also the big delivery app in Brazil?
It's among the biggest ones, but the contenders here are very aggressive. So you have regions with different providers and different players, but Rappi is among the top 3 for sure.
Okay.
And then also, like about logistics, we can see some international companies, and this company from China specifically called AliExpress investing a lot in logistics when delivering to Latin America. And this year, they understood that speed is very important to Brazilian consumers. So they have 4 weekly flights directly to Brazil, and they saw 100% growth on their Black Friday promotional day called Double 11. That happens in November 11.
The Singles Day, I think it's their invention.
Yeah, the Singles Day. It's a very big thing in China, but Brazil accepted and really enjoyed this day. So it's becoming bigger than Black Friday for them. And moreover, we have other companies from China also sending products directly from Brazil and promising 5 days to deliver. So they really understood that logistics is very important. The Brazilians really like to get their products very fast, and this time it's become very it's a key factor for them to sell more by delivering faster, because they need to help this logistic part once you still have some gaps in this in the logistics in Latin America. We can also mention that Amazon also got this point very correctly, and they are launching fulfillment services in Brazil under their Prime program. And the competition, the local ones especially, they are not just sitting and waiting for what's next. So we can call this as Prime Wars in Latin America, specifically in Brazil, with Americanas belonging to the B2W group. And Fast Shop is the Apple authorized reseller in Brazil, with their programs delivering with free of charge on shipping, but and the bundling is growing a lot. you can see a bunch of different services included in their Prime programs. But I can finish this part on delivery that the reverse logistics and returns, it's still an obstacle. It's not solved yet and very expensive for the merchant, and a lot of friction for the consumer as well. And they, especially in the local market, it's very difficult. In the cross border, it's even more. So I think it's another step, another thing that the logistics in the local markets in Latin America, they will need to solve in the near future to really close the loop in the delivery and logistics part.
Exactly, in the full commerce circle from that perspective.
And I just want to mention one thing, because I remember during the last event mentioning that we have there's no e-commerce anymore, no physical, it's just commerce. In Latin America, this isn't a reality yet, because the main players driving all the changes in the commerce, they are not the same from physical or brick and mortar stores. They are different. So you can say that the omni-channel is available for all the top players in the market. The e-commerce is still e-commerce. The physical stores are still physical. They're trying to catch up, but we are not seeing this just commerce happening in Latin America so far. Maybe in the near future, but it isn't a reality for the region right now.
Okay, all right. So still room for disruption on that angle. Okay, let's take the next step. Let's have a look at the second point, the digitalization of business.
Sure.
And I think the first point is mobile, and that's always on my trips to Latin America. I've always noticed mobile is very, very penetrated, and there's a lot of mobile commerce.
Yeah, and yeah, especially about this is very interesting because, and I can get the example from China that they just keep the credit card part and they move directly to the e-wallet part. So there is the reason why a lot of people try to use their international credit cards in China and they are not able. And in Latin America, when you talk about a lot of people just keep the desktop part, this is a reality because they started to use or to purchase in mobile and with smartphones. So their experience was not like buying in desktops and then moving towards to smartphones. Some of them and a lot of them just keep directly to mobile commerce. So the mobile subscription compound average growth in Latin America, it's 11.1%, and the smartphone adoption is 70%. And still there's a lot of room to grow. This is driven basically by a lot of offer of Chinese cheaper smartphone brands and also purchasing smartphones installments. They are very considerable when you understand and you see why smartphone adoption and mobile commerce is a thing in the region. Also about this part on mobile phones, there's a lot of first timers in e-commerce and mobile commerce specifically in Mexico and Colombia. Older people or people who were not very didn't feel safe enough to buy online. They try for the first time in Colombia. Rappi was doing that since they started to enable people to buy online. And in Mexico right now, it's really much because they didn't have any other option. So they tried for the first time and they saw that it's not it is not a unsafe thing. They were able to purchase and they felt, well, I can buy more from other providers, not only food, but I can also extend this to other physical products or in other categories. And this happened there. So all these first timers, they became a new force entering this mobile commerce and e-commerce in general. But in Mexico is very interesting because even though we can see that OXXO, it's a voucher-based payment method, very famous in Mexico, and they are also expanding to Brazil and Colombia and others with their convenience stores. They have a volume growing 10% since January until November every month. This is astonishing. And when you compare,
phenomenal,
like, people are still buying online, they are buying more, but they are paying cash in an Oxy store. So you can see that behavior changes a little bit in Mexico. They are starting to buy online, but paying the traditional way, the way they feel safe. And in Colombia, we saw a lot of volume growing in e-commerce, but bank transfer, prepaid cards, and cash payment methods are still very relevant, and they are growing accordingly. So the volume is growing, and all the margins for all these payment methods are growing as well. So also important to mention that, and this was a trend I perceived in the very beginning of the pandemic, and the brands and the e-commerce platforms, they adopted this as a way to communicate with new channels, more faster replies, etc. Is that they are including a better chatbot experience, not just any chatbot, but in a chatbot in a way that address correctly what is the purpose of the communication, or the moment of the communication. They're also using more WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, and other channels to communicate directly to their users. Big brands, smaller brands do this already because it's cost effective, but big brands are also adopting that.
And I guess it's where the small brands make the difference, and for the big brands, initially difficult to organize, but now a requirement to sell, even assisted selling.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And then I added to that, right after, I saw some big brands offering video chats and instant messaging conversations to provide this remote assistant to buyers. So you can buy a television with the support of the sales people directly from your smartphones and getting all the information that you need. And this happened less than a month after all the lockdowns and all the restrictions we had. So, and considering that Fast Shop, it was the example that I remember. It's a big retailer brand in Brazil. The adoption rate and the speed of adoption, it was really astonishing. Like they were able to create this overnight and to implement a system that worked for their consumers. Well, if I can move forward and wrap up and talk about market changes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, exactly. Also keeping an eye on the time. So let's go to the market developments.
Perfect. So what we will be seeing in 2021 and after, and what we can get from this year. The biggest market changes are all the changing in the market. It's driven by consumer behavior. It's different than previous years that the market try new technologies, try new approaches, and then the consumers will adopt or not. And this was the way things used to work before. But right now, convenience, returns, faster logistics, better logistics, and cheaper logistics, and more better quality of the mobile connections, internet connections, etc. They are demanded by the consumer. So all the change, and even we can go a little bit further. Other things, for example, payments that follow the way people want to pay, and the partnerships and the bundles itself, they are all driven by consumer behavior. So I think the right now in 2020, we can see that all the growth was accelerated, the changes were accelerated, but also the voice of the consumer, it's more important than ever was. So I think this is the biggest changing. We can see a lot of cases in the social media. People are getting more and more, they are paying more attention to what brands are doing, if they are connected to the reality or not, if they are doing their own game or not. So I think the consumer behavior and the consumer voice, it's more important than ever. The payments are also more relevant than ever. The UX experience, we can say about localization, translation, using correctly the sizes on the website, the metric system or the imperial system, and also payment performance as approval rates, payment methods, etc. This is the difference, and the details are making a huge impact on overall consumer experience and numbers. The new users.
And I guess don't go too fast from a payments perspective, because even though a lot of people, I take your Mexican example, even though a lot of people go online, still people go to the OXXO store to pay with cash in order to complete that order. So Perfect. Don't try to do too much at the same time. I think that also ties into the user experience.
Yeah, and disruption comes with a price. So I think a lot of, we can also take Mexico as an example. In 2019, they launched the Koorn. It's an instant payment method in Mexico, but the adoption rate wasn't what they were expecting. So, and on the other hand, the Brazilian government with the Brazilian Central Bank launched Pix, also instant payment method, and the adoption rate was absurdly high. So we have, for example, in 1 month and a couple of days, we have 47 million users. This is more than 20% of the population. And Koorn was launched like last year in September in Mexico, and they have just 5 million users. So you need to understand that the moment, what people want to do, and if the adoption rate will follow accordingly. So, and this, I think, is the best example among 2 different markets that are from the same region. You need to understand the local needs and how do people behave on each country.
Yeah, so I think that's an important element to remember as well. It's one continent, more or less, but it's definitely not one market. A lot of very different elements in each market, whether it's from a commerce perspective, mobile penetration, but also payment methods and payment method adoption. Very, very different markets.
Perfect. What will change?
Yeah, so maybe final. Yeah, sorry. Yes.
No, so just moving forward very quickly. All the new users, they will still be purchasing, and the amount of the recurring purchase from this population will be also seen helping to increase the entire volume of the e-commerce in the next years. And to finish here in a very good way is that the Colombian banking system, they were lagging behind other countries in Latin America, but right now they are trying to catch up by speeding all the technology advancements, new acquires, and more e-commerce friendly, providing to the user, the Colombian users, everything that they need to have a safe, quick, and very reliable purchase process in the e-commerce perspective.
Okay, all right. I think that's very good closing remarks there, Bruno. So I would like to thank you very much. I think very, very insightful information and observation on just those 3 countries. I know that you have similar information on other countries. So to everybody who wants to know more, please look up Bruno. He will be on the platform, so he will be available to have a chat with everybody. And I'll make sure to post some of the links to his information on his profile. So thank you very much, Bruno.
Thank you, Matthijs. It was a pleasure to talk to you here, and thank you all. So just send me a note. I'm more than happy to talk to all of you guys.
All right, excellent.